Hello and welcome to People Group 2025 Property Market Update. My name is Peta Seaman. I'm the Managing Director here in Adelaide for People and Edge Recruitment. On today's show, we're going to explore what key trends are shaping the property sector in 2025. We are joined by Deanne Goodwin, Property Management Department Manager at 𝐭𝐫𝐴𝐻 Real Estate, and Ella Mills, Residential Sales Real Estate Agent at Barfoot Thompson, to unpack the key trends shaping the property landscape across Australia and New Zealand in 2025. Also in today's market update, we will cover opportunities and challenges, what's driving change in property today, how is artificial intelligence reshaping property, and what do property professionals need to thrive in 2025? What's on horizon for property by 2030? But first, let's kick things off with a look at what's really happening in the property recruitment market right now. The property and real estate sector is undergoing major shifts in 2025, with new challenges and trends reshaping how employers hire, retain, and support their team. The industry continues to face talent shortages, particularly in commercial and residential property management and facilities and operations roles. While demand for admin and account managers has eased, the pressure remains, with 23% of employers struggling to fill commercial property manager roles and 20% facing challenges finding residential property managers. On a positive note, 64% of employers are open to training candidates who lack direct experience but align with their culture. The top roles employers are hiring for 2025 include commercial property managers, facilities managers, and residential property managers. Most recruitment this year is being driven by replacements, making up 36% of activity, followed by business growth at 31%. However, 20% of businesses have no hiring plans at all, showing mixed confidence across the industry. Bonuses and remote work continue to be the most common benefits offered by 56% of employers. Career development is seeing less focus, with 36% of businesses prioritising it in this year, compared to 54% last year. At the same time, AI and automation are on the rise. Over 3/4 of teams are now using AI to improve efficiency, with virtual property tours and AI-assisted workflows gaining momentum. Looking ahead, 66% of property teams plan to grow in 2025. But with 67% of businesses saying their teams are slightly or significantly under-resourced, the pressure to attract and retain talent remains. To stay competitive, employers will need to invest in upskilling, offer flexible benefits, and continue embracing smart tech solutions. All the insights we've just shared and the conversations we're about to have are drawn directly from our 2025 Employment and Salaries Trends Report. This comprehensive report is built off thousands of surveys and responses from job seekers and employers across Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. It looks at the latest work trends, hiring and job seeker trends, and can help you and your business make more informed decisions. If you'd like a deeper dive into the salaries, benefits, and workplace trends across your market, request your copy by scanning the QR code on screen at any point during this live stream, or click the link for the comments below. To break down more about what is happening in the market across Australia and New Zealand, we are joined today first by Deanne Goodwin, Property Management Department Manager at 𝐭𝐫𝐴𝐻 Real Estate. 𝐭𝐫𝐴𝐻 Real Estate is a trusted family-owned agency with over 50 years' experience serving Adelaide's inner south, west and coastal suburbs. 𝐭𝐫𝐴𝐻 Real Estate is known for its personalised service and strong community ties and commitment to helping thousands of families find their place to call home. Thank you for joining us today, Dee.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having me. It was a lovely introduction explaining what we do.
Excellent. So we'll get started with the questions straight up today. So what have been yours and your team's experiences over the last 12 months? And have you seen any changes in turnover or retention in the property sector?
Absolutely. So I think you mentioned before, most of my experience relates specifically to rentals and investment. For us, I guess it's been a mix of challenges and shifting trends in the market. From a property turnover perspective, we saw about a 20% increase in landlords looking to sell last year compared to the year before. We think this was largely driven by high sale prices, so they were seeing it as the right time to cash in. And I guess also later last year in May and November, there were some interest rate rises. So the ability to pay off their mortgages was becoming a bit more of a strain. There are a few that were on variable loans, and then we found landlords that managed to buy in the good terms, but they were coming off their fixed rates. So although rent went up slightly, it didn't go up to the same proportion as their mortgage rates. So the other thing that probably shaped and change and turnover in our market was in South Australia last July. We had some major legislation changes. So it was the biggest reforms to our Residential Tenancies Act in 30 years. So we observed there was like a smaller group of landlords who decided that it was time for them to, like the shift was time for them to get out of the rental market. So they did decide to sell. On the flip side, the buyer activity showed a big drop in investors in late 2024. So there weren't as many investors in the market, which made a tight rental market. There were rising property prices, so there was less affordable stock for them to buy. Increased mortgage costs also meant that there was a reduced return on their investment. So the only good news is we have this year started to notice a change and a shift. The recent rate drops earlier this year and last week have started to see more investors coming back into the market, and particularly from interstate investors. So we're hopeful that trend continues for us.
Yeah, there's been definitely a lot happening in the South Australian property market, and I think you've answered quite a lot of our questions coming forward, but we'll go into the next one. So what have been the biggest opportunities and challenges for your team in property over the last year?
Well, I think I brushed on it. I guess the biggest challenge, but it was also an opportunity, was the new rental legislation in South Australia. So it was the most significant change to our Tenancies Act in 30 years. The first of the changes happened earlier in the year, and they weren't so bad. They related more to bonds and admin and applications. But the major changes kind of hit us pretty hard because we knew they were coming, but there was never any date on when it would happen. Those changes include things around pet laws and not being able to say no to pets, the notice period to end leases, an end to no reason termination of leases. So now you can only end a lease at the end of the term with a reason. But the government decided to announce mid-June that the 1st of July was the date that we all needed to be compliant. So every single property manager in South Australia had 17 days to become compliant. So it was a pretty crazy time. Combined with a tight rental market, it made things really high pressure situation. So heightened emotions from landlords who were opposing the rules, heightened emotions from tenants who couldn't secure affordable housing. And also internally, I guess that there's pressure on the staff. They were under significant pressure to try and educate and find answers that we didn't have. But also, become compliant and change our systems. So it was a real balancing act of being supportive internally and externally. from that, the positive was that we found quite a few of our team members stepped up. So they learnt to lead, which helped strengthen our culture. And we actually worked out we have a really good ability to adapt in a high pressure situation. In terms of how it, the opportunities that it created, we all of a sudden had a wave of self-managing landlords. They were like, okay, well, it's actually becoming too hard to manage our own properties. So we're able to grow from that. And that turned out to be a real positive for us. It just opened a door for us to pick up new business.
That's fantastic. What great learnings from such a challenging time.
It is.
How have you seen the Australian property market shift over the past 12 months, particularly from a rental and investments perspective? Are investors and renters behaving differently, and what impact has that had on agencies like yours?
So they're definitely behaving differently. I feel like there's two separate sections. We had last year's activity, which has slightly differed to this year's activity. So we've actually seen here in South Australia probably a change in market conditions. So I touched on before, we had investors selling out in late 2024 and less investors buying in. So that really made it difficult for tenants. There was less supply and higher demand. The stability in 2025 and the rate cuts has brought some investors back into the market. For us, we have particularly seen a rise in a type of buyer we call the rent vestor. So this is typically a younger person who rents a property where they want to live and suits their lifestyle, but to get a foot in the door and into the property market, they will buy in a more affordable suburb. So it gives them some capital value and something to cash in down the track, and the rent help covers the bulk of their mortgage payments. So that's been a rise in trends, and quite a few younger investors living at home with mum and dad and saving are also buying into the market, maybe a unit or something that helps pay their mortgage repayments, giving them some capital down the track. So that's from the investment point of view. When we had rising rents last year, so from a tenant point of view, we found not a lot of tenants were moving around. So there was limited supply. Inability for them to find affordable housing. Again, the last few months we've seen a shift, and probably the first time, I won't give away my age, but I've been in the industry a long time, but this first time since pre-COVID, and in a very, very large number of years, we've actually had to drop rent prices. So there's been a bit of a shift about how we're educating landlords. Tenants are now negotiating with their rent increases at lease renewal, and we're seeing longer vacancy times. So on top of that, the media hasn't quite caught up. So that means we're spending a lot more time educating the landlords how important it is, particularly with the legislation changes and inability to vacate a tenant, how really important it is to place really high value on good quality tenants.
Yeah, that must be a big shift for them. Well, thank you so much for those insights. I'd like to shift gears slightly now and bring in our second guest for today's update, Ella Mills, who is a residential sales and real estate agent at Barfoot Thompson in New Zealand. Thank you for joining us today, Ella.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So I'll get started with you. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about the New Zealand market. So what have you and your team's experience over the past 12 months been, and have you seen any changes in turnover or retention in the property sector?
Over the past 12 months, I have observed significant changes in New Zealand property sector. They're mostly influenced by interest rates and employment concerns and just the economic conditions right now. But the number of properties that we've sold in New Zealand actually rose 9.5% for April 2025 compared to April 2024. So there's definitely some movement there. It has been a tough time. The market over the past years gone up and down. It's all over the place. But buyers have been demonstrating caution, and they're really going the extra mile to protect themselves. But local salespeople, especially in Auckland, anticipate gradual improvement, but the buyers are taking their time when purchasing. And it's largely due to substantial number of properties on the market.
Okay. Interesting insights in New Zealand. It's definitely a little bit different to here in Australia. So what have you seen to be the biggest opportunities and challenges for your team in property over the past 12 months?
I would say my biggest challenge has been dealing with buyers and sellers' expectation prices. It's all about educating the clients, and it's a big concern here in New Zealand right now, but it can be tough, and we're no longer in the peak of the COVID era where everyone was jumping on and wanting to buy houses, and it was a crazy time and the prices were skyrocketing. But managing some buyers' expectations can be difficult. But we have to really focus on the current market and where it's at now. We can't look back to the past. But there's a lot of pushback, understandably so, because it's people's biggest assets. But navigating buyer and seller expectations is challenging, also rewarding, but it's really given me the opportunity to learn how to better understand the market trends and have those difficult conversations with your buyers and sellers that some agents may shy away from. The challenges have included managing clients' expectations amidst fluctuating prices and ensuring that properties are competitively listed in a cautious market. But despite these hurdles, there has been satisfaction in witnessing gradual improvements in the market. But overall, as a real estate agent, you do face numerous challenges. But however, you continually learn and you have to jump on those opportunities as they arise.
Education definitely sounds the key in both markets. So have you seen the New Zealand property market shift over the past 12 months? Are buyers becoming more or less willing to purchase right now? And how is that impacting real estate agents like yours?
Yeah, over the past 12 months, I have personally experienced a market shift. The Real Estate Institute of New Zealand actually reported that in January 2025, we saw a high level of new listings, and it was up to 21.2% year on year. However, the listings in April declined by 11.6% from April 2024, indicating it's a drastic drop in the listings within just 4 months. So something that may surprise people is that the number of properties sold in New Zealand in April 2024 increased by 9.5% compared to April 2024. So proving that buyers have become more willing to buy. However, buyers are remaining cautious when purchasing properties. It's a massive shift from 2020 COVID time, where we saw buyers jumping on the opportunity to buy houses, and it was a competitive market. And now that we're on the come down, it's obviously external factors like everything going on in the world right now that can easily change our market. So this buyer mentality shift is primarily because of the buyers right now, and it's a buyer's market. So the largest impact on salespeople is that we've had to adapt swiftly to these changing markets to meet buyers' expectations and to meet sellers' expectations. I've had to focus on providing knowledge and skills, and you've got to really nurture your relationships with your clients. As many face uncertain times, lots of people have bought in the peak of COVID, and now they're selling their house for less of a price, and it does put financial strain on people. So this approach helps us understand how the shifting market trends do affect buyers and sellers and their willingness and impact on business as real estate agents.
That's a lot to unpack, I bet, with those buyers and sellers. So thank you so much for your insights today, Ella. I'd like to bring you both back now and be able to get a bit more of a broader view and some different perspectives on the market. So I'll start with you, Dee. In our recent 2025 report, 66% of property teams plan to grow in 2025. Are you seeing this same intent to expand in your market? And are you expecting the same trend in your organisation?
Yes and no. I guess for us personally, we're always looking to grow. We want to expand our market share in both sales and rentals. There's been a big trend lately for larger organisations to buy portfolios and grow that way as opposed to organic growth. It's a quicker way to grow your team and grow your company. For us, though, I suppose whilst we want to grow, we want to focus on being sustainable, more so in making sure there's no burnout within the team, and grow skills. So growing numbers, great, but you've got to be able to sustain that. So we just try and focus on the quality more so than having extra numbers in our portfolio. I guess you also, if you're hiring and you're growing as a team, you've got to be able to dedicate your time so that people can also grow properly. So I guess we focus on structure and culture, but yes, there's definitely a growth here in South Australia, and most companies, it sounds very different to the market being experienced in New Zealand, that's for sure.
Sure, thank you. What about you, Ella?
I've absolutely witnessed that there's a lot of growth coming up. Speaking from my experience, I can confirm that agencies across New Zealand have had a really hard time the past 12 months. We've seen agencies close down a lot, but it feels like we're coming out on the other side of it. And there's definitely room for people to expand. And I think they definitely have the intent to do that, real estate businesses across New Zealand, not just Auckland, but the market is noticeably shifting into more of a positive light. It seems very positive right now. Agents and branches and agencies seem to be really happy about where New Zealand's shift is going. And it's definitely going to change over the next 12 months. We don't know what's happening, but it looks positive. And I think, there's definitely going to be a lot of room to expand.
Excellent. Continued growth. What's what we want to hear? Our 2025 report found that 36% of property teams are prioritising career development and training, which is down from 54% in 2024. Why do you think there's been a decline, and how important is ongoing learning, training and development in your agency and market?
Starting with me?
Yeah, go for it, Dee.
I think that's unfortunate because training's obviously super important to growing. Probably I would say time factors and budgets would play a huge role in those statistics. It can get so busy in your day-to-day that companies tend to put it on the back burner, but really that's more of a short-term mindset, maybe, rather than thinking about growth in the future. It's particularly hard. I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but it is almost impossible to find good quality property managers here in South Australia. For us, we have a major commitment to train and develop our people because they're out representing our agencies. So we want to retain property managers where if they're not learning or growing, what we find is that they'll go and seek opportunities elsewhere. It's also, I guess, some of the younger generation up and coming. We've got to keep them engaged and check in pretty regularly because if they're newer to the industry, their expectations are different to what they were some time ago. And if you've got good people, why wouldn't you want to keep them? Because losing good staff essentially costs you more in the long run. That's how our philosophy is anyway.
Absolutely. Learning and development is a big attraction for job seekers out there, and it's high on their list when they're searching for their new roles. What about yourself, Ella?
Yeah, I agree to some of those bits relating to New Zealand. Ongoing training is really crucial in real estate, especially with new real estate agents, but it's what can make or break your business. The market's forever changing and you need to adapt and learn new techniques and skills for that. But a big reason why teams are choosing not to make training a top priority and role is because of the increased workloads and the financial burden that agencies are facing right now. It makes it a lot harder, and it's difficult for salespeople not only to find the funds but also the time, and it's definitely really hard right now.
So we've got to find that balance between providing that learning and education piece and keeping the team running.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. What critical skills do you believe both junior and senior property professionals need to succeed in 2025?
Well, for us in property management, we have a joke in the industry, because in order to be a successful property manager, we put on so many hats. We're debt collectors, we're negotiators, we're building inspectors, we're counsellors, we're compliance officers. So I suppose overall good communication skills, and I assume that would be the same in the sales sector. Time management, problem solving, doesn't hurt to be a bit open to tech and, have an open mind. I feel like a lot of juniors coming into property management, because it can be, it's such a rewarding job, but it can sometimes have its challenges. They just probably need to be resilient and calm and not take things personally. As we get older, for seniors, having high emotional intelligence and the ability to apply life experience to situations. Overall, I think for any job, just having a positive attitude helps for sure.
Excellent. Well, there's some great tips for those people who don't necessarily have the direct experience but might be looking to get into property. So thank you for that, Dee. How about you, Ella?
I 100% agree with Dee. It's the same here in New Zealand right now. You need to be resilient. You can't take things personally, especially in a time where a lot of people have financial burdens, things going on. They may not be the happiest, and you need to step back and have a professional hat on, not take things personally. And you also need to be resilient. You need to get through it. And it's the exact same as what Dee said.
So if you've got the right personality, then put your hand up.
Yeah,
exactly. Just have a good attitude.
Yeah, 100%.
How is AI transforming property and real estate, and what specific impacts have you observed in the last 12 months? I'm so interested to hear about this.
Well, I would say very quickly it has. I feel like there can be definitely some resistance in the industry to AI. So particularly when you've got older people that don't want to take it on board. But at the end of the day, it's here to stay. So we need to adapt and learn to use it to our advantage, add value to what we already do, help it make us look better. I think embrace it rather than fight it. And I feel like I was one of those that are like, oh, no. But now I realize how much value it can add to my role. I constantly encourage my team. Here at 𝐏𝐫𝐲𝐬, we use it every day for like market research, automated reminders, basic administration and financial tasks to help. Sometimes we're writing a tricky letter and we just need to take the emotion out of it or write an advert. So for us, I think it's a support tool. Frees up time that we can better spend on building relationships. Essentially, we're in the service industry, so it allows us to provide a more human, personal touch.
Yeah, what a great tool to be able to work alongside of you. How about you, Ella?
Exactly. Yeah.
We love AI over here. I don't think I've met a person that doesn't love it in the property sector. And over the past couple of years, I think it's gone further than our imagination could have ever dreamed of. And we're using it genuinely to improve our interactions with clients and how we operate day to day. So it's helping us deliver better service while saving time, and it's also reducing costs by making the process faster, smarter, and more efficient. I've seen it used for AI-powered CRM systems, which is what we are personally using right now. property advertising and automating client communication. It helps us in so many ways. And it was actually reported that in early 2024, there was approximately 22% of new salesperson in New Zealand using AI and open to advancing in the AI section. But I know 22% may sound like a small number, but new agents are more willing to learn than what, say, older agents are. Agents that have been in the market longer are stuck in their ways, and they may not be as open to learning about AI. But if it's done right, it can be a really useful tool that definitely is going to advance. And I'm really excited for the future to see how AI goes and where it leads to.
Such an exciting tool to be able to use, again, like we said, as that support tool, or to be able to free up time for you to be able to do the real people job.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. Beyond AI, what other key trends do you expect will continue to impact the property landscape by 2030?
Wow, I found this one difficult. I had to have a little bit of a think about it. I guess I was sort of coming of it more from a rental perspective, but there's a lot more to the question. From the rental side of things, I think we'll see a national trend more towards tightened legislation, particularly more rights for tenants, particularly as the dream and the affordability of owning their own home is becoming out of reach. So I think we're becoming a nation of renters, so there'll probably be a lean towards that. Maybe a push away from that more traditional home ownership. So maybe something that's embraced elsewhere is like fractional ownership, where people they invest together and buy shares and share the costs of a property. There'll be probably a bigger push on developers having to build more sustainable designs and floor plans and community style living. It'll probably be more of an expectation for green housing rather than just a preference or an option. We have seen, in the market, increased shared living arrangements, so higher density developments where you can fit more people into a building. As the cost of living has risen, we've seen families and friends all moving in together. And probably as AI takes over, I was really pleased to hear how it's been embraced so much in New Zealand. I guess as AI takes over, there'll be more from an agency point. We will have to focus on real human connections. So client and customer expectations are going to go up. So we're going to have to become more transparent and more service driven and add value. That was my thought process.
Yeah, some great things there. Ella?
Yeah, this question I actually also found hard to answer. It took me a while. I went to my colleagues and asked what their opinion was. And it seemed to be their big thing was generational living. Parents and their kids living together, friends living together to share those property costs. It's a big thing right now, for financial reasons, obviously, but also the second big thing that we agreed on was sustainability. So it's climate consciousness, and it's becoming a major trend. It will impact the property sector with clients seeking energy efficient homes. But the technology is revolutionizing building and security, and it's allowing us to have smart homes, and it makes the process more digital. But sustainability seems to be a really big thing for New Zealand right now.
Great. Well, whilst both of you found that difficult to answer, I actually really enjoyed both of your answers, and I think that's some exciting things to think about by 2030. A big thank you to both of you for your time today and for giving us some incredible insights into the market. If anyone watching today is wanting to reach out to get in touch with Dee and Gary J. Smith Real Estate or Ella and Barfoot Thompson, you can visit the comments for all information below. So thank you again, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us.
Just a reminder that all the insights shared today are based off the 2025 Employment and Salary Trends Report. If you'd like a deeper dive into the salaries, benefits and workplace trends across your market, request your copy by scanning the QR code on screen or click the link for the comments below. Lastly, whether you're looking to grow your career or build your team with the right talent, the People to People Group can help. As an award-winning recruitment agency, we operate across Australia and the UK with specialist teams in every major market. Across the ditch in New Zealand, we have proudly recruited for over 23 years through Frog Recruitment and with offices based in Auckland and in Wellington. And in South Australia, Edge Recruitment are Adelaide's leading specialist in property and real estate. Contact details are on screen now, or see the links in the comments to reach out to one of your teams today. That's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us for a special property market update, and we'll see you next time.